What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the IWCA podcast. Again, my name is Nick Thurston. I'm your host here. We got a special guest here, Tim Weissman, and also we still have Paul Collum on with us, our president of the IWCA at the moment. So I'm really excited for the show today. Paul's got a lot of great questions for Tim, and Tim, hopefully you can give us some good info. So let's just go ahead and hop right into this. So Tim, first and foremost, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of what your background is, and
Sure.
go from there.
I am recently turned 50, so I've made that half-century mark. I'm married for 26 years, 4 kids. 2 of them are in college. Actually, one of them's in graduate school. I originally was trained to be a clinical psychologist and started down that road many years ago. Worked as a psychologist for probably 3-4 years. But really got burned out and wanted to do something else after all of that, training and learning and everything. Researched franchising as a thing. I didn't know anything about business, so to speak, but I found franchising and went down the road and found fish window cleaning. Obviously, I jumped at being part of the system and been doing it now for 11 years. And then I actually have also recently re-entered the world of psychology. It's something that had been in the back of my head for a long time, because I never anticipated that I would go my whole life and not do what I had basically trained for so long to do. And when the pandemic hit and my business basically went to near zero revenue, I was like, well, now's a good time. And so I started doing online counseling, and I've been doing that now for a few months. And so, yeah, that's kind of sort of my story in a nutshell.
Awesome. So you're, before we get into the important stuff, which I think this is really important for everybody kind of going through the pandemic, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but even for being a foster parent, we've seen an increase in like 800% of suicidal calls and those types of things into the hotlines in most states. So I think that's really important, but I do want to have some fun questions with you, Tim, because nobody knows, most people don't know that you are a world champ. So talk about the sport and talk about how many world titles you and your son have.
So I'm a 10-time world air hockey champion. I'm also a 5-time world doubles champion, and my son is a world champion at air hockey now as well. He won a couple of years ago, and so we're the first father-son duo that have both won the worlds, and so that's kind of cool. Air hockey, I grew up as a mall rat, in the 80s. You've probably seen the movies. And we hung out at arcades, and the arcade that I would hang out at here in Houston had air hockey tables. And so we played air hockey and discovered there was a whole world, like a subculture of competitors. And so I got really into it, and I invested a lot of training and focus to basically become, at the top of that. And it was great. It's a great sport. A lot of people don't realize that it exists.
Yeah. That's super cool. So did your son have to beat you out to get the world title?
That's a great question. I actually did not compete in the event.
Okay. So you gave it to him.
That said, I will be honest. He convinced me there was going to be a world championship here in Houston in April this year. It got postponed.
Yep.
And my son, Jacob, convinced me to get ready to go ahead and make a comeback, right? Like a George Foreman type thing, And so I started practicing with him in the garage. He destroyed me. I mean, he just kept destroying me. And I just realized, man, there's a lot to be said for having young, fast reflexes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amen to that.
For that sport, and somebody plays it all the time in an arcade and just says they're really good at it. It's they could do well in the world championships themselves. What's the one thing you think that is really, really important to be really good at it? Okay.
So basically, whenever I teach somebody new at air hockey, the first thing we'll do is we'll I'll show them a lot of ways to develop puck control. One of them is very similar to in boxing when you hit a speed bag and you develop a rhythm.
Sure.
It's the same thing in air hockey. You could do that with a puck on the table. And the reason it's so critical is because from everything that happens in air hockey comes from puck control. You want to be able to make the puck do what you want it to do. You can't control it at just a perfect level. It's not going to happen. So.
Awesome.
Very
awesome.
cool.
All right, so let's get to the important stuff. We've been pushing out IWCA members stress and anxiety related articles a lot the last couple of weeks, just because of those spikes we saw in the hotlines and all those things. And so you wrote an article. You're a clinical psychologist, and I think it's really important to get information in front of our members and anybody really that wants to watch this. And so let's talk about your article. Tell me about the tips in that article and just kind of talk through them for us.
Sure. I'm going to pull it up here just because, I didn't memorize the exact order.
Sure.
But basically, when I realized I needed to do something else to start making some revenue, and I started thinking about psychology again and sort of processing what's going on in our country, I realized that this change that has occurred has been so rapid and so vast and so difficult that, of course, millions of people are going to be experiencing heightened levels of stress, which leads to anxiety, depression, and a whole host of things. And so I decided to write an article which would give people tips on reducing their stress. I think a lot of times we tell people some basic things, but I think that in this specific circumstance, my number one recommendation is to reduce media consumption. And, I'm guilty of it myself, sitting there scrolling the feeds, watching the news clips, all that kind of stuff. And you don't realize, but your anxiety just starts inching up. And if you consume that day after day at a high level, you're basically just giving yourself anxiety or depression, and you can avoid that. So what I encourage people to do is get off of the media, specifically news programs, traditional sites where, CNN, Fox News, the New York Times, everything like that. Because, think about it, like you turn on one of those channels and you see a big red, bold counter, right, of the number of people who've contracted COVID, the number of people who've died, and there's this sense of dread that comes over you. And of course, the media wants you to feel that way, so you tune back in.
Yep.
You don't have to. You can decide you're not gonna, consume it. Another one is to develop a schedule. I think one of the reasons why this pandemic has created so much stress in people, so much, uncertainty, is that their schedules have been disrupted. If you've ever had like a ho-hum 9-to-5 job, right, that you go to every day, the same thing, and you go home, after a while, it's sort of boring. It's predictable, right? We could actually use a little bit more of that right now because we're experiencing a lot of unpredictability. We don't have a clue what's going to happen in our business. We don't have a clue when things are going to open up. And, that's unsettling for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I can attest to that myself. I mean, it just because of all this, everything being closed down, my schedule has just been completely off. And I found myself getting those depressive feelings and feeling like, what am I doing? I'm going to work and then I come home and I can't go to the gym because they're closed. I can't go out for a drink or for, food at a restaurant or whatever. So it's like, I just found myself sitting in front of the TV for 6-7 hours at a time. Right. And it just took me, somebody to give me a sharp kick in the ass and go, well, look at what you're doing. I'm like, oh shoot, you're right. So I started writing down stuff and it's amazing what it can do just to write it down, like what you want to get accomplished for the day and kind of when. And it's just changed my attitude and my internal, kind of just feelings.
It gives you a sense of control, a sense of certainty that is missing.
Yeah.
And that feels good. It feels safe, Another thing that I talk about is, it's sort of related to this, is engaging the rational mind. I think that anxiety is so focused on the future. A lot of times we talk about depression is being focused on the past because we've lost things. Anxiety is focused on the future because of the what if, what might happen. And people that are at peace and are calm are focused on the here and now. And, I think a lot of people that are very anxious are getting caught up thinking about the what ifs. So when they see, all these numbers and they see maybe, 0.5% fatality rate, there's this kind of uncertain feeling like, what if that's me? What if I'm the one unlucky person? Rather than thinking about it rationally and saying, well, actually 99.5%, people recover and go about their life.
Right.
And
exactly.
so I think it's good to bring some of that logic back, rather than it's a more emotional thing to think about the what ifs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, I don't know, maybe you guys do some of this mindfulness meditation. I think mindfulness has become more well known in the last decade. There's a lot of discussion about it. There's actually a really cool app that is out now called Headspace. You may be aware of that. And what's really neat about Headspace is it focuses on teaching beginners how to engage in mindfulness and how to practice it and get better at it. And what's interesting is that Headspace right now is also offering, like plugging for them, but I think they actually have a really cool app, a full year free on their app to anybody who's unemployed. So,
wow, there you go.
Let folks know it's a really neat resource. My son, who's very anxious, not the one who's the world champion, a younger one, he's a teen son. I got him on it, and he's been doing it daily, and it's helped him a lot.
That's very cool. I'm a big fan of meditation and mindfulness as well. It does wonders just to kind of sit and focus internally for a minute and just not focus on the outside world,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And as a plug for, I guess, my business, one of the things I'm offering are customized mindfulness meditations where I will, consult with someone and find out specifically what their concerns are, what they're struggling with, and then I'll record a custom meditation for them.
That's awesome. Cool. That is very cool.
Exercise. I know I'm based on what you said, it sounds like, Nick, that you exercise, and I'm pretty certain that Paul exercises as well.
Yeah.
And the thing I think people really need to understand about exercise is it needs to be at least 20 to 30 minutes of aerobic exercise where your heart rate is raised to the point where you're sweating. Mm-hmm. And it certainly keep watch of your heart rate. You don't want it to go too high, but you want it high enough to get a sweat going, because it's that 20 to 30 minutes that's required for your body to release the endorphins, which interact with the neurotransmitters in your brain and give you that sense of elevated mood. And so I think sometimes people think, well, I'm gonna go ride on my bike, or I'm gonna go for a walk around the neighborhood. Those are good. You should certainly do them. But if you want to get, similar to what we call the runner's high, you got to get that aerobic exercise going. And I mean, Paul knows this probably more than I do. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to get Nick to run because he just lifts really fast and thinks that's cardio.
My cardio is walking in between the weight machines, right? Walking from the bench to the free weights. That's it.
What a lot of times I tell folks is, like, if you think of it as a prescription, like if the doctor could give you a pill that just made you feel good and that wasn't addictive or, harmful to you, would you take it? Probably. You'd love to have that. You actually have that. Your body makes those chemicals. You have access to it. You just have to, do the exercise to get it.
Yeah. That's interesting. I've never thought of it that way, but that's a very good point. All right. Unfortunately, I'm noticing we're running up on our time here. So Paul, you want to move on to some more questions here?
Yeah, so the last one, and this was awesome. I appreciate this a lot, Tim. The last one is, how would somebody get a hold of you should they want to take advantage of your services?
Oh, sure. Just go to journeysbridge.com.
Okay, journeysbridge.com.
Journeysbridge.com. Yeah. I guess the way I thought of it is that, in life, we all have to cross difficult terrain. And my hope is that at Journeys Bridge, we'd be able to help you cross that bridge.
Very cool.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome, Tim. Thank you.
So I had one follow-up question here, or a couple actually. So you mentioned your psych background. Obviously, we've been talking about that. How have you noticed that play into, or have you noticed that play into how you run your business on the window cleaning side?
Yeah, I think it definitely does. A number of things came up is that I never realized that psychology is sales. And so, I remember early on, somebody was trying to tell me that you should never try to get into the head of your customer. I think the exact opposite. I think you absolutely should be understanding where your customer is coming from. And so, you'd be able to engage in the process better and be more successful at selling. The other area where I found psychology really beneficial was in dealing with employees and dealing with folks that you're managing. From industrial organizational psychology, you learn that how much money a person makes is just one factor in why they might be happy where they're working, and it's actually not even near the top. Yeah. So treating people with respect, helping them feel like they're part of a team, that they have purpose, that they're making an actual contribution. Those are all just, I think, super important to creating a culture in your small business.
Especially for us millennials.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. And then I was just curious, and actually both of you guys could probably answer this question because you're both with Fish. So what drew you to the franchise model? What do you see as kind of the pros and cons of that? Keeping it brief, of course.
Sure. Well, I mean, as a franchisee, I could just say that what drew me to it was that it was a very simple model, right? Not simplistic. Like you have to learn, what to do and how to do it. But it was very simple, and it stayed true to just being a good, honest service. But then above and beyond everything was just the people. I met Mike Merrick. My wife met Mike Merrick, and literally after 15 minutes of talking to him, we knew that this was somebody we wanted to partner with. So, I mean, that was it for me.
That's cool. That's big. Yeah. Paul, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's just it's just system. It's a repeatable system. And just like Tim said, we're a huge family. We get a different look sometimes from independent window cleaners just because we're a franchise. We're all over the place. And so the biggest thing is we're a big family, and that's even outside of Fish too, with other window cleaning companies. And so we've seen that. You've started to see that a little bit more in the IWCA too, with the Fish family as well too. So we're just trying to help out as many people as possible, and obviously our franchisees as well.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That was the thing that pops into my head, or that is the thing that pops into my head when I think about franchises is you're buying a system. The royalties or whatever they call it that you have to pay for that is you don't have to go through the struggle, the headache, the hardships of trying to figure out what works. I'm not a franchise. I took over a family business and there was no systems like at all. There wasn't even a filing system. The papers are literally stacked up in an office from 50 years ago.
My dad.
It was my uncle and my grandpa. Yeah. And, so that's huge. I mean, that's what we've been trying to develop all these years. And I think that's the number one thing that makes a business successful is just having repeatable systems.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. All right. So since we got a couple minutes left, we're going to throw one, because I've only thought of one yet. We're trying a new thing where we're just going to ask everybody the same questions every week. So the question we came up with, the first one, if you could give up to 3, so top 3 or less, if you've just got one really good one, tips for window cleaning business owners, what would you throw out there? Like the most important things.
Oh, Lord. Well, I mean, this is one thing that I did that I know not every fish owner does is I went out and cleaned glass for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it benefited me greatly because when we have new guys coming, into the company, there's an issue. I can go and watch them and be able to help them instantly. And not only that, be able to help, but if you as the owner show up and start blowing them away with your window cleaning skills, there's a certain level of respect that is
Absolutely.
right. He's not just some owner. This guy knows what it's about. He's one of us.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
I agree. Whole 100% on that. Yeah. So to that point, since it sounds like you're not going to go into another one yet.
I don't.
No. It's okay. I was giving you time, but I just wanted to say, I remember for the longest time, for about a year, my guys never really saw me cleaning. And I remember going out there and getting in a bosun chair on the swing stage. And they're like, "Whoa, you actually know what you're doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm actually better than you."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I like to tease the guys a lot and say that one day they might be, as fast as me, but maybe not. The one other thing I would say though, I wanted to make sure to get in for your listeners on the anxiety part was, I think it's important to try to create something. I think if you can spend a little time creating, each week, that will help you a lot. And it doesn't need to be, the Mona Lisa. It doesn't need to be something really sophisticated or inventing some, new product. It could be as simple as coloring with crayons. Spend, half an hour doing something creative each week, and that'll help reduce anxiety as well.
Interesting. I like that. All right, guys. Well, we got to wrap it up here. Tim, thank you so much for being on. It was a pleasure. A lot of great information there. And everybody, remember what he said there, journeysbridge.com. Go check him out. Get your customized meditation there. Or another free plug for Headspace here. If you want that one free year, you're welcome, Headspace. You can send the check to my mailbox here. One for your meditation. Yeah, no, everything was very, very awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Tim. And
thanks
thank you
for
Paul.
Inviting me, guys. Wish you the best. Stay safe out there, and hopefully it'll all turn around pretty quick.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, you guys. We'll talk soon.